A letter to the younger. You who needed to hear this, close your eyes for just a moment. Breathe in slowly, hold it. Now let it go. In that stillness, I want you to picture something. A child standing before you, small, quiet, watching you with wide, searching eyes. There is hope in that gaze, but beneath the hope, something else, fear. A question that has never quite found its answer, hovering just beneath the surface of everything she does, every relationship she enters, every room she walks into, and immediately begins to read, "Am I enough?" That child is you. Not a memory you can lock away. Not simply the past, but a living, breathing part of who you are right now. Your inner child, still present, still waiting, still carrying what she never had the words to say. How many years have you been walking with that weight? How many mornings have you risen, smiled at the world, and quietly pushed past the ache that lives just beneath the surface, the one that whispers you are too much, or not enough, or somehow fundamentally unworthy of the love you so freely offer everyone around you? Today that changes. Not because I'm going to fix you, there is nothing to fix, but because today I'm going to invite you into one of the most courageous acts a human being can perform, turning inward, looking gently at the parts of yourself you have kept in the dark, and writing a letter, not just any letter, but the letter. The one your younger self has been waiting a lifetime to receive. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That is what we are doing today. We are making the unconscious conscious. We are stepping out of fate and into choice. Stay with me, because what follows may be the most important conversation you will ever have, not with me, but with yourself. Who is she? Really, your inner child is not a metaphor. She is not a poetic concept reserved for therapists' offices or the pages of self-help books. She is a psychological reality, a living layer of your psyche that holds your earliest imprints of the world. She is the version of you that existed before you learned to perform, before you understood that love could be conditional, that emotions could be inconvenient, that safety was something you had to earn rather than something you simply deserved. She arrived in this world open and unguarded, needing only one thing, to be seen, held and told without condition. You are loved. What happened after that moment is where your true story begins. Jung described the psyche as a vast layered landscape, most of which lies far beneath conscious awareness. The inner child dwells within that landscape, shaped not by fantasy, but by lived experience, by the tone of a voice heard at the age of 4, by the presence or absence of a parent at a moment of fear, by the single instant when a child reached out her hand and found nothing there. These experiences did not dissolve when you grew up. They went underground. They became architecture, invisible walls and floors and doorways that determine how you move through the world without you ever choosing them. And now, decades later, they resurface in the strangest of places. In the knot in your stomach before you ask for what you need. In the way your chest tightens when someone seems disappointed in you. In the relentless exhaustion of trying to be enough and never quite believing you have arrived there. That is your inner child speaking. That is her hand, pressed gently against your ribs from the inside, asking you to stop and finally listen. Were the wounds that followed you here? Every child arrives in this world with the same fundamental need, to be safe, to be seen, and to belong. When those needs are met consistently, the child develops what psychology calls a secure foundation, a quiet, unshakable inner knowing that the world is navigable, that she is worthy of love, that she can move through difficulty without losing herself. But when those needs go unmet, even subtly, even by well-meaning people, something goes wrong in the most private place. The child does not conclude that the adults have failed her. She concludes that she has failed. That something in her specifically is the problem. This is the wound. It does not require dramatic trauma to take root. Sometimes it is the parent who was emotionally unavailable, physically present but unreachable in every way that mattered. Sometimes it is the repeated message, spoken or simply lived, that your emotions were too big, too messy, too much for the people around you. Sometimes it is nothing more than the absence of 5 simple words. I see you. You are enough. Whatever form it took, the child adapted. She learned to be smaller, to need less, to smile when she was breaking, to perform a strength she did not feel, because showing weakness felt more dangerous than suffering in silence. She learned to earn love rather than expect it, to scan every room for the earliest signs of disapproval, to shape herself around the preferences and moods of others so seamlessly that eventually she lost track of where they ended and she began. She was extraordinary at it. Survival often looks like competence from the outside, but survival is not the same as living, and the strategies that kept you safe at 7 years old become the invisible prisons that hold you at 35. Jung called these adaptations the persona, the mask we present to the world. It is not dishonesty, it is intelligence. It is a child finding the only way she knows to stay safe. But when we wear the mask long enough, we forget there is a face beneath it. And the tragedy is not that the world cannot see you, it is that you have begun to stop seeing yourself, the shadow you have not yet met. Jung also spoke of the shadow, the dimension of the psyche that holds everything we have disowned. Every emotion we were taught was unacceptable, every hunger we suppressed, every raw, unpolished, inconvenient part of ourselves we believed would make us unlovable if seen. For many of us, our inner child lives in the shadow, not because she is dark or damaged, but because we placed her there. We learned early and efficiently that certain parts of ourselves were safer hidden from view. The child who cried too freely learned to stop crying. The child who needed too openly learned to stop needing. The child who dreamed too boldly learned to apologize for her imagination before anyone else could dismiss it, and so she went underground. But she never went away. She is there in your self-sabotage, in the way you walk away from good things before they can walk away from you. She is there in your perfectionism, in the relentless, exhausting drive to finally, at last, be enough. She is there in the way you over-explain yourself, over-apologize, over-accommodate, always quietly monitoring the emotional temperature of every room and adjusting accordingly. Jung believed that what we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves does not dissolve. It accumulates energy, it grows heavier, and it eventually finds expression in our patterns, our fears, our most baffling and persistent self-defeat. The answer is not more suppression, it is integration. To integrate the shadow is not to indulge your worst impulses. It is to look honestly at every aspect of yourself, including the parts that make you uncomfortable, and say, I see you. You belong to me. I am no longer afraid of you. When you do this for your inner child, when you turn toward her instead of away, something extraordinary happens. She stops running the show from the dark. She steps into the light, and she becomes not a wound to be managed, but a source of tremendous wisdom, creativity, and depth. Everything that was buried alongside her when you learned to survive. The process of becoming whole Jung called the lifelong journey of becoming fully oneself individuation, the slow, sacred work of gathering all the scattered, disowned, fragmented pieces of who we are and bringing them home to a conscious whole. It is not a destination, it is a direction, and it asks one thing above everything else: the willingness to look inward with honesty and without flinching. Begin by learning to recognize her voice. The next time you feel an emotion that seems larger than the moment deserves, the sharp surge of panic when a message goes unanswered, the flush of shame at mild criticism, the grief that rises without obvious cause, pause. Resist the familiar impulse to explain it away, to manage it, to perform composure. Instead ask, where is this coming from? Who inside me is feeling this? That question is a doorway. Behind it you will often find your inner child, not as evidence of weakness, not as something pathological, but as a messenger bringing you precise information about an old wound that is ready, finally, to be understood. Emotions are not the enemy, they are the map. Every reaction that seems disproportionate to the present points backward to a moment in the past that was never properly witnessed or resolved. Healing does not wait in the future, it lives in the moment of recognition. In the instant when you stop turning away and choose, perhaps for the first time, how to see. Reparenting, returning to yourself. There is a practice in depth psychology called reparenting, the deliberate conscious act of offering yourself now what you needed then, not as a wish that the past had been different, not as nostalgia, but as a present tense act of genuine care, repeated every single day. It means speaking to yourself the way you would speak to a child you love, not with the voice of the inner critic who keeps an exhaustive catalogue of every failure and inadequacy, but with the voice of a grounded, gentle adult who knows that struggle is not evidence of unworthiness, who knows that you are allowed to make mistakes without being defined by them, who knows that rest is not laziness, that need is not weakness, and that wanting to be loved is the most human thing in the world. Reparenting means setting boundaries, not to keep the world out, but to preserve the tender, essential parts of yourself that have been overlooked for too long. It means allowing yourself to grieve what was missing without shame, the love that was conditional, the words that were never spoken, the version of childhood that should have held more safety and more warmth. That grief is not self-pity. It is the honest acknowledgement of a real loss, and it deserves your compassion. It means choosing yourself consistently and without apology, in the small ordinary moments that accumulate into a life, in what you tolerate, in who you allow close, in the stories you tell yourself at the end of every day. This is not selfishness. This is the foundation upon which every meaningful relationship, every act of genuine love, every brave and open-hearted choice is built. You cannot pour from depletion. You cannot offer presence while simultaneously running from yourself. The most loving thing you can give the world is a self that has been tended to, honestly, consistently, with the same fierce compassion you have given so freely to everyone but yourself. The letter now. We arrive at the heart of it. I want to invite you to do something that may feel unusual, perhaps even frightening. I want you to write a letter to your younger self. Not an exercise, not a list. A real letter. The kind written to someone you love deeply and have not seen in far too long. Begin with her age. Whatever age comes to you first when you close your eyes and let yourself remember. Maybe she is 5, standing in a doorway, waiting for someone to notice her. Maybe she is 9, learning for the first time that her feelings made people uncomfortable. Maybe she is 14, standing at the edge of something that changed everything, with no one to help her understand what was happening. Start simply. Dear little one, I see you. Tell her what she most needed to hear. That it was not her fault. That the love she could not find was not a reflection of her worth, but of the limitations of those around her. That her sensitivity was never a flaw. It was a gift that the wrong people did not know how to honor. That her needs were never too much. That she was never too much. Tell her what you know now that she could not have known then. That the loneliness did not last forever. That she was gathering quietly and invisibly a resilience she would one day recognize as her own. That every tender, overlooked, quietly aching part of her was worth knowing, is still worth knowing, is something to be celebrated rather than hidden away in the dark. Tell her you are sorry it took so long to come back. Tell her you are here now. Because this is what Jung understood more deeply than almost any thinker of his time. That healing is not a matter of forgetting the past, but of remembering who you are. Not what happened to you, but the self that existed before the conditioning. The self beneath the persona, beneath the survival strategies, beneath every mask you wore to make the world more comfortable with your presence. That self did not disappear when you learned to survive. She has been waiting patiently in the only place she could, inside you. The truth. She has been waiting to hear you are no longer that child. You carry her face, perhaps, or her laugh, but you are also the adult who survived everything she could not, who carried the weight forward, who found a way to this moment. And that means something of enormous consequence. You are the only person who can give her what she needs, not a partner. Not a parent who finally says the right thing after all these years, not success, achievement, recognition, or someone else's approval. You are the safe adult she has been waiting for. The one who will not leave when things become difficult, who will not flinch at the weight of her emotions, who will not tell her she is too much or not enough, or that her pain is an inconvenience, who will simply, finally, stay. This is what it means to heal your inner child, not to travel backward in time, but to carry her consciously forward with you, as a beloved and integral part of yourself, rather than a wound you are quietly managing around the edges of your real life. When you begin to do this, something fundamental shifts. Old patterns lose their grip. The relentless hunger for external validation begins to quiet, because you are no longer asking others to fill what only you have the power to fill. Relationships change, not because the people around you change, but because you no longer approach them from a place of chronic lack. You stop performing worthiness. you start inhabiting it. The old voices do not fall silent overnight. The fear does not evaporate immediately, but their hold weakens, and in the space that opens, something extraordinary begins to grow. Presence, trust, a quiet, unshakable certainty that you are, and always have been, enough. This is where your story changes. Jung believed that the deepest purpose of the human journey is not happiness in the conventional sense. It is wholeness, the slow, sacred integration of all the scattered pieces of who we are. Light and shadow, strength and tenderness, the adult you have become and the child you still carry. Wholeness is not perfection. It is not the absence of pain or fear or uncertainty. It is the capacity to hold all of it, the joy and the grief, the confidence and the doubt, without needing to disown any part of yourself to remain standing. That is what waits on the other side of this work. Not a version of yourself that is finally fixed, but a version of yourself that is finally free. Free to love without losing yourself, free to be seen without performing, free to need without shame, and to grieve without apology. Free to stand in the full, complicated, luminous truth of who you are and say, without flinching, "This is me. I am not finished, but I am whole, and I am enough." Your inner child is not something to be managed or outgrown. She is the most essential part of you, the keeper of your earliest instincts, your most authentic joy, your capacity for wonder and deep feeling that no amount of conditioning ever fully extinguished. She does not need to be fixed. She needs to be found. She needs you to turn back, extend your hand and say the words she has been waiting for longer than you know. I see you. I love you. I am not leaving you behind again. An invitation. If something in these words stirred you, if a younger version of yourself quietly rose to the surface as you listened, take that as your signal. Not tomorrow. Not when life is easier or less complicated. Now. Write the letter. Begin with one sentence, if that is all you have. Speak to her, even if your voice is unsteady. She does not need eloquence from you. She does not need perfection. She only needs your presence, the one thing no one else in the world can give her. And if you know someone who carries this kind of quiet weight, who smiles when they are breaking, who gives generously while quietly starving, who has spent years searching for something they cannot name, share this with them. Because sometimes the most important thing one person can do for another is simply place a hand on their shoulder and say, "You are not alone. You were never too much, and the healing you need is already within you. You were never broken. You were never beyond repair. You were always underneath everything that happened, worthy of the love you have spent a lifetime chasing in all the wrong directions. It has been inside you all along. Come home." And if you are ready to go deeper, to move beyond listening and into real, lasting transformation, we have created something to walk beside you on that journey. Because understanding this work is powerful, but practicing it day by day with intention and structure is where your life actually begins to change. Research tells us that it takes approximately 20 days for the conscious mind to begin integrating new patterns, 20 days of deliberate, compassionate inner work before the parts of yourself you have long forgotten start to awaken and return. That is why this guide exists, not to replace the work, but to accompany you through it. Page by page, day by day, one honest and courageous step at a time. This is not just a book. It is a turning point for the ones who are tired of surviving and ready to begin living, for the ones who have carried their inner child in silence long enough and are finally willing to say, "I choose myself now." Get your copy and take your first real step. Your inner child has already waited long enough.